What about second breakfast?
Time for second breakfast.
What's up, everybody? Monster from Breakdowns for Breakfast here with another second breakfast. This one's a little bit different because this one is a book report. Sorta. I read The Dirt, Confessions of the World's Most Notorious Rock Band, the infamous Motley Crue biography. I say read to make myself sound cooler, but if I'm being fair and honest, I actually listened to it on Spotify. However, in my defense, I've tried listening to audiobooks before and have failed miserably. I just have a really hard time focusing. It's weird because I listen to podcasts pretty much every day of my life, but for whatever reason, if I'm trying to listen to a book and keep up with a book, I struggle. Now, I will say that's usually when I'm trying to listen to a fiction with a, 300, 400, 500 page narrative. Maybe if I was listening to more things like this, maybe I wouldn't struggle as much. Or maybe this book is just that damn good and it kept me hooked from literally beginning to end. For those of you that don't know, The Dirt was published in 2001, and it chronicles the history of the band Motley Crue up until that point. Now, obviously, 2026, they're more or less still around. All the guys are still alive. They've put out many records since 2001. So this is definitely not like a complete, the whole story. But what it does get into is some pretty wild stuff. And if you know anything about Motley Crue, you've probably heard a lot of these stories. It's very well documented with videos and pictures and stuff, interviews, just the way they were, with the drugs and the women and the alcohol. It's all very well documented. There's also the actually really good movie on Netflix called The Dirt, where it's a dramatization, and I can't remember all the actors, but I remember Machine Gun Kelly plays Tommy Lee, and I remember when this was first announced thinking, you gotta be kidding me, but it's actually really good. It's been years since I've seen the movie. I remember watching it shortly after it came out and being really, enjoyed it a lot, but I was just curious. I had heard, I think my brother owned the book and has read the book, and of course he told me it was really good, and I had heard it was really good, so I was like, I didn't have any new podcasts to listen to or anything, so I put it on. I want to say it was 14 or 16 hours, something like that, but was not hard to get through it all. One of the things that makes it kind of cool is that the book is written sort of like as a collaborative autobiography. So what that means is the guys in the band, Tommy Lee on drums, Mick Mars on guitar, Vince Neil on vocals, and Nikki Sixx on bass, they each write their own chapters. So to kind of keep the flow going, the audiobook has 4 different narrators that narrates each chapter, and they sort of do these little inflections on their voice that make them sound a lot like the guys. So it's real easy to picture just sitting there thinking Nikki Sixx is reading his chapter to you. I can't remember who they were, who they said it was reading the chapters, but it wasn't the actual band members. But what's really so anybody that knows anything about Motley Crue knows all the debauchery and knows all that stuff. So it's really wild to hear them tell it from their perspective. The Nicky's overdose, where he more or less dies and got thrown into a trash can before he was brought back. Tommy Lee and Pam's fight that landed him in jail for a few months. The one that really is tough is Vince Neil driving drunk and ended up killing the guy in the car with him, as well as causing permanent brain damage to the people in the other car. So they don't shy away from those things. So it is completely just you read as it goes on, you might get 5, 10, 15 minutes of these girls and these drugs and this party where we met these people and picking fights with Axl Rose and all this stuff. And then the very next thing is about fighting with their wife while their son is in the room screaming and crying. And it's really, heavy duty stuff. I think it is because of the movie and because of who Motley Crue is, it's like a big joke. It's like, oh yeah, it's the heroin guys, the alcoholics and all that. And some of it is funny in the sheer just like nonsense of it all. Like some of the things they say so nonchalantly about women, about drugs, as if it's just like, because to them it really was just like another Tuesday. Like it was not like a big deal to do a rail of coke and then shoot up and then go take 4 shots before going to play a gig or whatever it was. Whereas to, it's most common folk, it's like, damn, buddy, that's a little heavy, isn't it? And so all of that's in there. But I will say this. There were parts where I was laughing my ass off. There were parts where I was like, good Lord, guys. Like, how are any of you still alive? The Mick Mars chapters are wild because literally Vince, Tommy, and Nikki, it's all about drugs and women and all this stuff. And then you get to the Mick Mars chapters and he's talking about how the government is always spying on us and poisoning us with our food, and how all these women stole all his money and he's broke and all the other guys are rich, and it's kind of crazy. But I will say the part that was like genuinely hard for me, really hard, was Vince Neil, his 4-year-old daughter passed away at the time in the scheme of this book, and it goes into great detail the weeks that he spent in and out of the hospital, all the surgeries she had to have. She had some kind of a cancer that it mentions it in the book that where their home was somewhere that the military had done some testing and stuff, and that there was like this higher level of some kind of radiation or chemicals or something, and that they're pretty sure that's what caused the cancer in their 4-year-old daughter. I think her name was Skylar. And yeah, as a dad of a 4-year-old girl, that was really hard to listen to. I was literally standing in my laundry room folding clothes, my 4-year-old's clothes, pulling them out of the dryer, just bawling my eyes out. Like, it's so hard. And then the very next chapter is like Nicky Sixx shooting heroin between his toes because he can't find a good vein, and then running out of the hospital naked. So I mean, it's that kind of a ride. So the reason I wanted to do this is, do I recommend The Dirt by Motley Crue? Yes and no, because it is so outrageous, and the things they say and the things they do, it's not easy to listen to if you're not prepared for it. I knew. I've heard so many stories. I had seen the movie. I had a really good idea of what this was going to be. I wasn't expecting it to get quite as deep on the more personal side. Like I said, the whole thing with Vince Neil. It goes into pretty deep in depth on Tommy Lee and Pamela and their fight. And there's a whole section of Tommy Lee basically reading the notes that he was writing down in prison and the things that he was seeing and dealing with while he was in jail. And that's pretty heavy stuff too. So, but what I will say is it is very interesting. If you are a music fan, there's not a whole lot that necessarily is like earth-shattering or mind-blowing from a musician standpoint. But it is interesting to just kind of see and hear how things have changed over the years and how some things have always stayed the same. Like, for example, the formation of Motley Crue was, a bunch of different guys from different cities and putting in want ads in I think it was called the Recycler or something like that, the little local paper around their area, and they were putting in ads to find musicians and stuff. I mean, it was just a couple years ago, I was posting on Craigslist looking for a lead singer for a band. So it's like, some things never change. We might change from newspaper to internet, but it's the same philosophy. And then also just word of mouth, friends, this band is now playing with this guitar player, and that guitar player saw this singer from that band, and he wants him in that band, that kind of thing. So it was kind of interesting just to kind of see that and hear how all that came together. But I would say if you're squeamish, I wouldn't recommend it because, like I said, it goes some places, and I think the part that makes it to some very funny and then to others a bit I don't want to say offensive, but maybe like harder to listen to, is just how nonchalant and matter of fact it all is. At no point is it like, I can't believe we did this. It was more like, yeah, that's what we did. And so that might be kind of hard to swallow for some people. But I'm glad I actually sat down and listened to the whole thing. Like I said, there was no huge revelations. It didn't necessarily change my mind on anything. I've always been sort of, I don't know what the correct word is here. I like Motley Crue. I think Motley Crue is a fine 80s metal band. I've seen them live. It's actually funny. There was one, Nikki Sixx got into a lot of trouble at a concert in Greensboro, at the Greensboro Coliseum, where they dumped alcohol and used some racial slurs towards a security guard while they were on stage. And I've seen Motley Crue at the Greensboro Coliseum, and I don't know if this was the show that I was at or not. My brother would know because he was the one who took me, I'm 99% sure. So if he listens to this, which he probably will, I'm sure he'll chime in and let me know. No, it wasn't that one, or hell yeah, it was. So, but yeah, and then also it was kind of interesting hearing the part where, while Tommy Lee is in jail, he starts to like lean in towards the new metal and the rap rock stuff. And that's when he put together Methods of Mayhem when he got out of jail. He was writing lyrics and stuff for that in jail. Similar to the Richard Patrick thing from Filter, he was calling his answering machine and leaving like melodies and rhythms and vocals and stuff that would later become Methods of Mayhem songs. I thought that was kind of interesting. Like I said, I'm glad I read it, or listened to it, whatever. But it's not for the faint of heart. And I don't know if there's ever been like a part 2. I feel like there should be now. It's been another 20 years or so. Obviously they've cooled off quite a bit, but life continues, and they've put out a lot of records since then. I'm sure there's a lot of stories behind those. And to be honest with you, they probably don't need another book. There's probably 25 hours worth of stuff on YouTube that chronicles all that. But anyway, yeah, The Dirt, Motley Crue. Have you read it? Have you listened to the audiobook like my lazy ass did? Or have you at least seen the movie? And what are your thoughts on Motley Crue? Do you dig them? Do you not dig them? That's what I was getting ready to say. I like a lot of Motley Crue stuff, but I'm definitely not the type of person to tell you, like, I don't know the deep cuts. I don't know, track 9 on Dr. Feelgood. I'm not in the weeds on it. But, all the main songs I used to play, Looks to Kill. I think Live Wire is a killer song. So, yeah, I like Motley Crue, which is, made it more. I think if you are at least familiar with the music, the book is better. But anyway, yeah, let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. And as always, have a great day.